There was a time when drag racing felt untamed, loud, and alive in a way that can't quite be recreated today. The smell of burning rubber hung in the air, engines screamed at full throttle, and the crowd lived for the moment the lights turned green. It wasn't just about speed, it was about personality, showmanship, and attitude. In that golden era, one name stood out not just for horsepower, but for presence. Jungle Pam.
But I'm a slut. Well, look at...
Standing beside the legendary Jungle Jim Lieberman, Pam became part of the spectacle that defined 1970s drag racing. She wasn't behind the wheel, yet she became one of the most recognizable figures in motorsports history. With confidence, grace, and fearless energy, she brought something new to the track. But behind the cheers, flashing cameras, and roaring engines was a deeply personal story, one shaped by love, loss, and the cost of living life at full speed. This is the story of Jungle Pam, the woman who lit up drag racing's wildest years. A chance meeting that changed everything. Before she became an icon, Pamela Hardy lived a quiet, ordinary life. She was a college student in her early 20s, focused on classes and small-town routines, with no plans of fame or involvement in racing. That all changed in 1972 when she crossed paths with Jim Lieberman. One afternoon, his Corvette pulled up beside her, the sound of its engine impossible to ignore. Jim's long hair, confident smile, and unmistakable charisma immediately set him apart. Known to fans as Jungle Jim, he was already a rising star in drag racing, famous for his bold style and larger-than-life personality. When he talked about racing, the travel, the crowds, the freedom, it sounded like an entirely different world. What began as a brief conversation quickly turned into an invitation to see that world firsthand. Pam had no experience with racing, but something about Jim's energy and passion pulled her in. That single encounter would redirect her entire life. Leaving the familiar behind for most people, joining a traveling drag racing team would have seemed unrealistic, even reckless. Pam had no mechanical background and no connection to the sport. Yet within days, she made a decision that surprised everyone around her. She stepped away from college and chose to follow Jim into a fast-paced, unpredictable life on the road. It wasn't an easy choice, but it felt right. The world she entered was loud, crowded, and intense. Drag racing in the early 1970s was dominated by men who lived for competition and speed. Tracks were packed every weekend, the air thick with fuel and smoke. Pam didn't blend in, and she wasn't meant to. Instead of shrinking back, she learned quickly, observing how things worked and finding her place within the team. What started as curiosity became commitment. She wasn't just along for the ride. She became part of the operation that kept Jungle Jim's racing world moving forward. Finding her role on the track. Pam's role grew naturally. Helping Jim meant doing whatever needed to be done, whether it was organizing equipment, checking the car, or assisting during runs. One of her most important jobs was backing Jim's car into position after burnouts, a task that required focus, timing, and trust. This wasn't symbolic, it was practical, and it mattered. Her calm presence brought balance to Jim's explosive energy. Fans noticed immediately. With her long, dark hair, denim outfits, and effortless confidence, Pam stood out in a sport that rarely featured women in visible roles. But it wasn't just her appearance that caught attention. It was how comfortable she looked doing her job. She moved through the chaos with purpose, never playing a part, never pretending. Cameras followed her because she belonged there. Without trying to be famous, Pam became unforgettable, earning the nickname that would define her legacy, Jungle Pam. Becoming an icon without trying. As Jungle Jim's popularity grew, so did Pam's visibility. Racing magazines featured her alongside Jim's car, often capturing her mid-action on the starting line. The public quickly embraced the pairing. Together, they represented everything fans loved about drag racing: excitement, personality, and rebellion. Pam became one of the most recognizable women in motorsports, not because she sought attention, but because she embodied the spirit of the era. She brought warmth and humanity to a high-octane sport, showing that racing wasn't just about machines. Her confidence inspired admiration, especially at a time when women were rarely seen in such roles. Yet through it all, Pam stayed grounded. She focused on the work, the team, and the rhythm of race weekends. Fame arrived whether she wanted it or not, and with it came expectations, pressure, and a spotlight she never planned for, but handled with grace. Life on the road with Jungle Jim. Life with Jungle Jim meant constant motion. The schedule was demanding, with hundreds of events each year and endless miles on the road. Hotels blurred together, weekends disappeared, and the roar of engines became background noise. Jim lived for the thrill of racing and the connection with fans. He was a showman who turned every appearance into an event. Pam admired his passion, but the lifestyle was exhausting. There was little room for rest or routine. Despite the challenges, they shared a deep bond built on trust and shared experience. On the track, they worked seamlessly. Off the track, they navigated the pressures of fame and constant travel. Their relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real. They were partners in a world that demanded everything from them, and for a time, the excitement outweighed the strain. The other side of fame. As their fame grew, so did the attention. Fans adored them, photographers followed them, and media outlets focused on their image. While the admiration was flattering, it also brought challenges. Public perception rarely reflects private reality. Pam found herself constantly recognized, her identity forever linked to Jungle Jim. The spotlight made it difficult to separate personal life from public image. She carried herself with composure, even when the pressure felt overwhelming. Being part of drag racing's most visible duo meant every moment was observed. Despite this, Pam remained professional and loyal to the team. She didn't seek drama or controversy. She simply showed up, did her job, and supported Jim. Few people realized how much energy that required. Behind the scenes, it took strength to maintain balance while living inside a world that never slowed down. A moment that changed everything. On September 9, 1977, everything stopped. Jungle Jim Lieberman was driving his Corvette in Pennsylvania when a tragic accident occurred. In a matter of seconds, the man who had lived life at full throttle was gone, just days before his 32nd birthday. There were no crowds, no cameras, only silence where energy once lived. The news stunned the racing world. For Pam, the loss was devastating. Jim wasn't just a racing legend, he was her partner, her anchor in a life built on motion. The future they were racing toward vanished instantly. Friends and fans mourned a showman who had transformed drag racing, but Pam faced a grief few could understand. Everything they had built together, on the track and beyond, ended without warning. The end of an era. Jungle Jim's death marked more than the loss of a driver. It symbolized the closing of a chapter in drag racing history. The sport began to change, with increased safety measures and a shift away from the wild showmanship that defined the early 1970s. Jim became a legend, frozen in time, remembered for his fearless style and unforgettable presence. Tributes poured in from across the racing community. For Pam, the tracks no longer felt the same. Every engine sound echoed with memory. The world that once felt alive now felt empty. Quietly, she stepped away from racing. There was no announcement, no farewell tour, just distance. Leaving wasn't about forgetting. It was about survival. The life she shared with Jim couldn't exist without him. Stepping away from the spotlight. After leaving drag racing, Pam tried to rebuild a sense of normalcy. She took small jobs, traveled, and searched for stability away from the noise and attention. But fame followed her. To fans, she would always be Jungle Pam. People recognized her everywhere, often wanting to relive the past. While she appreciated the love, it made moving forward difficult. Over time, Pam learned to protect her privacy. She gave occasional interviews, always respectful, always focused on the facts and the history. She never sensationalized her story. The woman who once thrived in chaos now valued quiet. Healing took time. The adrenaline rush of racing had disappeared, leaving space for reflection. And in that space, Pam slowly found peace. Love after loss. Eventually, Pam opened her heart again. She married Fred Frey, a man connected to the racing world who understood its pressures. Their relationship was built on shared history and mutual respect, but it carried emotional weight. The past was never far away, and comparisons were unavoidable. Though the marriage didn't last, it was part of Pam's journey forward. Later, she found lasting peace with Bill Hodgson, a man outside the racing spotlight. With Bill, Pam found stability and privacy. Their life together was calm, grounded, and intentionally simple. She was no longer performing for crowds or cameras. She was simply living. Love for Pam evolved from excitement to understanding, from speed to stillness. A quiet, grounded life. Today, Pam Hardy lives a peaceful life away from the chaos that once defined her. She has no children and has spoken openly about being content with that path. She remains in good health and stays active, carrying the same quiet strength fans remember. Occasionally, she attends racing events or reunions, where she's greeted with warmth and respect. In 2016, she made a brief return to the starting line at the NHRA finals, a moment that felt surreal even to her. She handled it with the same confidence that made her famous decades earlier. But it was a tribute, not a comeback. Her life now belongs to her. Preserving a legacy. Pam understands her place in history, even if she never asked for it. Museums, collectors, and historians continue to honor the era she helped define. She has donated select memorabilia when she felt it was done respectfully. Her story remains preserved not through spectacle, but through memory. Online, her presence lives in archived photos and fan tributes. She avoids social media, choosing authenticity over attention. When she speaks, it's thoughtful and grounded. She doesn't chase nostalgia, but she doesn't reject it either. She accepts her role in drag racing history with quiet pride. More than a supporting role. Jungle Pam didn't drive a car, but she changed drag racing. She showed that presence, confidence, and professionalism mattered just as much as speed. In a male-dominated sport, she carved out space simply by being herself. Her impact wasn't loud, it was lasting. When people talk about the golden age of drag racing, her name always follows. She remains a symbol of a time when racing was raw, personal, and full of heart. Remembering Jungle Pam Hardy's story isn't just about racing. It's about choice, courage, love, and resilience. She lived at the center of one of motorsports' wildest eras and survived its most painful loss. Today, she stands as a reminder that legends aren't always behind the wheel. Some stand quietly beside it, guiding the moment, shaping history, and walking away when the race is over. Jungle Pam did just that, and the world still remembers.